Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome to the Renegade Butcher Show, episode 51. I'm Josh the Renegade Butcher, and good to see y'all. Sorry, let me shut off my new air conditioner that I've got here over in the shop. I say shop, but the more my office space. So, as you guys saw the other week, last week on the last episode here, I've got some space cleared out here to work in and do some spice stuff and do the podcast. So give me just 1 second here. Sorry. I've had a little bit of a goddamn. I just inhaled a gnat. I've had a few of those that have made it in the house lately. That's a great way to go. Anyway, let me grab a drink here. These gnats have been really bad in Southeast Texas lately, and I've been fighting them in the house. So, but I've got the space cleared out, and as you can see, I've got some curtains and stuff up around here to kind of get the audio so it's not super echoey. But anyways, welcome to episode 51. Tonight, I wanted to be a little bit different. Yes, something in my throat. It was a bug. I got to try to keep my mouth shut and talk at the same time. Breathe out only. Anyways. So we had our big episode last week, episode 50, and I wanted to sneak something in on the weekend. Didn't have a chance to actually work something in. Wanted to do some interview shows and stuff, but that is going to be coming up. We had some cool ideas, some great suggestions from the audience that came up during that episode, and had a great time doing some giveaways. So all those giveaway things should be pretty much in the works or shipped out, ready to go to everybody. Congratulations to everybody that won, and thank you again to not only everybody who follows and made 50 episodes possible, but to the other creators who were all here and contributed and threw out some stuff that, they wanted to toss into the old giveaway to help support me and the podcast. And I really cannot thank you guys enough for all the time, over a year now, that we've put into doing this show. So, and we've had such a great community that has spawned up around it. So many other things that have gone on. And it blows my mind that we've literally had other podcasts that have spun up because of the community that's formed around it. So yeah, I'm talking to you down there, Kyle. And man, that's just crazy. That's just crazy. I'm just a butcher that half-ass does this shit and talks in my car or in a back room in Texas. So just goes to show, if you are willing to put the time in and put the effort in, you can do what you want. Go do your thing, man. I hope everybody takes from that and does something themselves. If you have something to talk about, if you have something to share, let's go do that. So I could go on about all that, but a few things I want to touch on. Seasoning of the Month Club is coming up. We are into June. We're halfway through the year. So we had two people that actually won Seasoning of the Month Club offerings on the giveaway last week. And that will be coming up here, middle of the month. I try to shoot for about around the 15th-ish, whatever works, to get all those things shipped out. So now is a good time. If you're interested in trying that, go to renegadebutcher.com and sign up, and you can get in on all the fun. That is exclusive in that I always do at least one blend every month. That is something that I'll never probably do in mass and probably never be able to replicate again. Something that has like smoked salt or fresh grown herbs or something in it that I can't really scale. I can't make it a blend that I keep and I can just throw together as one of my signature blends on the website. But I still like doing those. I enjoy them. I use them myself. They're fun. And everybody has really enjoyed the ones I put out so far. So the way that I'm limiting how much of that I'm able to make or making it something that's exclusive is by doing it for Seasoning of the Month Club folks. So if you sign up, it's $15 a month. You get a 4-ounce pack of whatever you want that I offer on the website. And if there's something that you don't see and you do want, let me know. I'm constantly looking to add new blends, and I have a few in the queue that are getting worked on. But a 4-ounce pack as well of one of those one-time just exclusive blends. So it's the only way you can get it, unless I have some extra and I hand them out to people or something like that. But it's the only for sure way you're going to be able to get a hold of it. You don't have to go for a full year. You can go month by month. Totally fine with that. So go check it out, renegadebutcher.com. And you can sign up for multiples if you want. If you want to get 2-3 packs of regular things, if you really like the stuff, go for it. let me know and we will hook you up. That said, we're going to get back to the meat side of things, but for episode 51, I wanted to do something different than just sit around and talk shop, talk business, talk about what I have going on. I wanted to talk about people raising animals for food, whether it be meat or other things. And some of my recommendations of if you are new to raising animals, new to homesteading or getting involved with it, maybe you've got a little bit of a property, a little bit of space. What do you do? What are some great entry points? This is not necessarily going to be an episode for specifically people who are experienced homesteaders or experienced livestock owners. But if you are, hey, you might learn something and hopefully you like hanging out. And I like those folks. If you're not in Telegram group or on Nostr or hanging out in this community, it's awesome that you're here. Hey, take your time, be a little bit of a mentor to new folks who are interested in this because it's such a growing field. And I know it's been touched on. Everybody has their own opinions and thoughts. I know Jack's done episodes on it. I know most content creators who have done some homesteading have done an episode like this. But I figured it's time for me to do an episode on my top 5. So this should be fun. And let me catch up with the comments because I see everybody rolling over there. So let's see, before I really get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, no pun intended. Let's see here. Dun, dun, dun. All right. Hey, we got Brian from the Lots Project says, what's up? And he's right. He says, hit that thumbs up on the way in, folks. It's a pretty cheap admission price. You're right. You're right. You don't have to, but I do appreciate it if you do. It always helps out if you do take the time to do that. Yes, I know that's the controversy on Nostr that is like really that useful. On YouTube, it is. It does matter. Helps that algorithm, and it's not hard for you to do. I do appreciate it. And if you like this stuff, and you like what I've got going on, give me a follow. It helps. Let's see here. Yes, I had something in my throat, choking on a bug. It's a great way to start a podcast. Always love doing that. Let's see here. Dun, dun. No, apparently I'm backwoods hero. No, man, I tell you what, the stuff that you do is fucking amazing. You popped out of nowhere, started up a YouTube channel, and you're doing shit that I have struggled with for years. So do appreciate what you're doing, and I'm gonna have to get with you some more. We're working on some of that collaborative shit. There may be some big things coming up. I'm still waiting on an email. I need to find out where it was sent to, but more big things coming up with that, and I will let you guys know. Hopefully there will be some cool content and educational experiences related to a fairly well-known festival that's in this space that we'll be doing. And I'm not even talking about SRF, which you should be checking out. Let's see here. Golden Cricket says there's too many emojis. Are you trying to post emojis, or I'm missing here? Anyway, let's see. Corey wants to know if I ever take pictures of my animals. I do take pictures of my animals, just not all the time. I have a backlog of some I can send to Corey. I have sent her some in the past, but she mentioned that last night. I was running around dealing with some storms coming in, and the critters were all a mess. So it was not a good time for me to be taking pictures. I'll get her some pics. I need to send some more. Let's see here. All right. And yes, I am supposed to be sending Corey some pictures. All right. What else do we have here for new shit? Holy crap. This is just rolling here. Oh, Jordan Carl. He says hashtag Nostronaut. Yeah, I thank you for popping over and following. He's been on Nostr. He's been on Nostr Nest a couple of times. Super awesome. Great to have you over here, bud. Let's see here. Lisa, good evening. Thanks for stopping in. And let's see here. I don't even know what Brian is going off about. Oh, he's talking about my list of animals. He thinks number 1 is going to be guinea pigs. That's actually not an invalid idea if you want to raise something indoors in limited space. South America, that's actually a very popular animal. They were originally cultivated for meat. But no, it's not on my list. It's not really something that's going to probably be your best choice. Hamsters, that may be something that Kyle's more versed with for other reasons. Gerbils, probably the same reason. Goldfish, they make good fishing bait. They do. And armadillo, I don't think you can raise armadillos efficiently, but I've never tried. We've got enough of them here. I don't really have to go out of my way. They're pretty good eating, but they're a lot of work. Anyways, guys, let's have some fun. Oh, let's see. Lisa says she's getting attacked by June bugs this year. Yes, they are all over. 'Tis the season for them. Oh, man. Yeah, these gnats are the worst. I don't want the mosquitoes. I don't want the flies. But, man, when these gnats get in the house, and it doesn't take much. I mean, you could have some coffee grounds sitting in your trash, and they're on it. So yeah, I've been doing all kinds of things in here between some fly spray and running a bug zapper at night. And once they get in, man, it's just hard to fight them. They're small, they're tiny. So raise ostriches. That's good. Nostriches. Raise nostriches. That should be a thing. We need a hashtag raise ostriches. Anyways, guys. So I wanted to talk about, if you are interested in getting into homesteading, if you got a little property, even if you don't have much for property, you've got a backyard, that's what this episode I think is going to be more focused on. People who are getting into it, you've got a little bit of space, you want to start becoming more self-reliant in providing for your own food. And I think it's great to garden. It's important. I think everybody should know how. You should be doing something. You should be growing something. But if you look at nature, plants and animals, it's kind of copacetic. They work well together. So it's really hard to be self-sufficient, and it's really hard to produce food or really fill in all the dietary niches unless you have both plant and animal sources. So, sorry, don't mind the roosters outside all chatting away and talking. But so first on my list, and I'm going to go in reverse order of what I think is not necessarily what the most productive animals, but I'm going to go in reverse order of how I think maybe you should get into it. And this is by no means a full list. There are many other things that could be on this list that aren't. There are, you don't have to go and jump into it with number one by any means. You can cherry pick from here, but these are just some cool suggestions, some cool ideas that I've had. And as you guys know, I talked about it a little bit on Kyle's show the other night. He actually had a full episode where he interviewed me and was talking more about what I've raised and what I do. And of course, we ran out of time. We didn't get to talk about everything. Never do. But check out Meet the Critters with Kyle, the Backwoods Butcher over there, Backwoods Butcher 603 on YouTube. And you can find that, I think, linked on Nostr and all the places. It's definitely over in Telegram. So if you're not in Telegram, t.me/Liberty Meat Chat, you should be. Go and join up and find it. You can find all that fun stuff. But I've talked about mostly a bunch of poultry that I've raised, along with some stuff with some pigs. Let's jump into this here. So I would say, and this is the kind of a cop-out because it's the easy one. It's what everybody's going to pick for that first animal that everybody should try if you're able to. It's not within everybody's wheelhouse, but chickens. Chickens are the gateway drug to livestock. And for a lot of reasons. They do so many things. They're great for meat. They're great for eggs. They're great for a lot of other shit that you don't think of when you start thinking of actually being self-reliant and having meat. Turning compost, insect control, producing fertilizer, helping add to your ability to make compost and grow your garden. So there's so much that they can do, but it's a huge, wide topic because there are so many breeds of chickens. Why are there so many breeds of chickens? Because they are one of the most useful utilitarian animals that humans have ever bred. We have meat-specific breeds. We have egg-laying specific breeds. We have some that are known as dual-purpose breeds. And there's some that are good in cold climates, hot climates, some that are good in both, some that are just fancy, some that are just ornamental. I don't even know how many chicken breeds there are. I probably should have looked it up just to have a fun statistic for the show, but I didn't. There's thousands of breeds of chickens. So I will talk about a couple that I've had experience with, a couple that I've heard some good things about, and they're all kind of what's considered dual purpose breeds. None of them are going to be your ideal meat chickens. If you go to the grocery store and you buy chicken right now, it's probably going to be what's called a Cornish cross, which are a freak hybrid. They're not genetically modified. Everybody likes to throw that term around, but they are a genetic fluke in the way that you take two specific breeds and the way that they interbreed, the cross that comes between them. And it's really kind of like specific genetic lines of those that are very difficult for somebody to actually have access to. They've been selectively bred until, they have these closed lines and they breed those two lines together. And that first generation specifically will have extreme growth at an extreme rate. It's like the amplified version of hybrid vigor, if you know what that is. So these birds will
grow, they will eat as much as they can, and they will grow so ridiculously fast that at 6 to 8 weeks you have full-sized meat birds, and they grow so fast they can actually break their own legs or have heart attacks. So not what I consider sustainable, and it's not something I'm throwing on the list to recommend, especially for somebody who's just getting into it. I'm not knocking on anybody who wants to, especially pasture raise or tractor raise, meat chickens. That's kind of like the end all be all. There are, I think, better ways to do it, but if you're going for fast meat, that's an option. I don't think it's how you should start for sure. You're going to have a hard time. You're going to lose a lot of birds, and I wouldn't do that. I would go for something that's either an egg-laying breed or what they consider a dual-purpose breed, which are usually still decent to good egg layers, but may produce a decent-sized meat carcass. Now, it's going to be tougher, it's going to be larger, it's going to be older before it's ready to eat. But this is what I do, and this is me personally. I will raise something that is a utilitarian bird that is good at egg control, that is good at laying eggs. I said egg control, insect control, pardon me. That is good at laying eggs, and also will produce a decent meat carcass when I need to cull extra roosters or things like that. So some of those breeds, let me pull up my notes here. I had to mention, I'm going to throw this out there really first because I teased the show earlier on Nostr, and one of my followers and a person I interact quite a bit over there, you should check them out. They actually go by, and you're going to laugh, it's called Bitkini over on Nostr. They're promoting, they sell Bitcoin themed bikinis. That's their thing. But I didn't know this, they're also in the homesteading. They're into sustainable livestock, and they promote this, and they sell these as a lot of fundraisers for big Bitcoin events. So it's super cool. But they raise Australorp style chickens, and that is a great multi-purpose breed. They do really well with egg laying. They get big, and it's something that's known to be a fairly docile breed. And some of the different colors, they can be really, really pretty. I personally raise Brahmins and Brahmin naked neck cross. They're another large breed chicken. The Brahmins have feathered feet, along with Cochins. That's one of those oddball kind of birds that they have feathered feet, but they are super cool. They've got good dispositions, and the full size get large. The naked necks as well. They're a weird, funky looking bird. I talked about those on Kyle's show the other night a little bit. I need to send him some pictures too of these crosses. So I've been working myself for what is sustainable here. Some of these barnyard mixes do really, really well. So other breeds that are worth mentioning, I've raised Rhode Island Reds. They've been great birds. They're a lot smaller carcass, a little bit lighter of a breed, a little bit better layers. Wyandottes are great. Plymouth Rocks, Delawares, Jersey Giants, and I could go on and on and on. But those are just some really good breeds that get some size to them, but are also good layers. And I don't want to talk about chickens forever because I can make a whole podcast about it. And I have done full episodes on chickens, but it's way too big of a topic for anybody to cover. Now, I will say that if you're going to raise them for meat specifically, you're going to have to probably invest in some sort of infrastructure to do it, unless you have somebody close by that does chicken processing. If you do, that's great. I know one of the audience members, I don't know if she's here yet. There's a ton of comments going on here. They are wild and out, but if Rachel is watching, or if she catches this on the replay, she's found a really good butcher over in her region that gives an amazing price. And most guys will charge a lot more than that, and I would too. Processing poultry isn't even something I enjoy. I only do my own culls for the most part, so I get why it's so expensive. It's a lot of work for what you're doing, but at the same time, they don't take much work. Raising them yourself at home, totally doable. As you can hear, I've got birds outside, geese screaming. So yeah, that's going to go on. It's getting to be that time of night where they're hungry, they're ready to get fed and go to bed. So, but as far as you're raising said chickens, if you only have a small space in your backyard, look into your local regulations and shit. I'm not telling you not to just have chickens, but know your neighbors, know what is going to get you in some shit. Some areas will allow you to have a certain number of hens, maybe not a rooster. If you're in an unincorporated area out in the country or something, you're probably fine to do what you want. Have a secure pen for them. Know what your local predator situation is like. Make sure that you're able to get them put away, at least in the evening, if you do free range them. There are a million ways to raise chickens, and we could go into that and make multiple podcasts on the different options there. So if you've got questions, jump into Telegram, catch up with me on Nostr or any of the other social platforms, ask some questions, and I'll do everything I can to help you or point you in the right direction. Most of the audience here, I think, probably has been involved with chickens at some point. Like I said, it's the gateway drug to livestock. So, but the next one that has been mentioned quite a bit, but doesn't get too much love. It's actually the first livestock animal that I've raised, and it was before I ever ended up on property where I could do it. I did it kind of stealth in town, and I know Brian down here from the Lots Project did a ton of them in pens in his garage at one point, or a barn. And it's Coturnix quail, specifically Coturnix quail, not little Bob Whites or whatnot. It's a Japanese quail, or also known as Pharaoh quail. And they've been bred for a long time, like a very long time, as a dual purpose meat and egg bird. And they're small. They can fit in your hand easily. A grown adult is going to come out weighing, I mean, some of the jumbos may weigh a pound. They're not big, but they're fairly quiet. Even the males, when they crow, they sound kind of like just a songbird. You know, you get a bunch of them together, it does get kind of loud, especially in an enclosed space. But they're also a bird that does very well in confinement. In fact, they've been bred to be in confinement. They're most comfortable there. Since they're a flock-oriented bird, it doesn't really matter how big of a pen you put them into. All of the birds are going to clump together in one space. So you can actually get away with them in their natural form being raised in fairly small pens. I used to raise them in rabbit hutches, and you can be surprised how many you can put in there and still have them have room to move around, but they'll clump together. So they're super easy to hatch out if you have an incubator and the right size egg turners. They hatch faster than just about anything else. They hatch in 2 weeks. They begin producing eggs extremely young, like 6, 7, 8, 10 weeks. You got them laying eggs. The hens lay pretty much an egg a day. I swear sometimes they lay 2. So you've got a hen that's popping out 7, 8 eggs a week. Now they're small eggs, but it takes about 5 of them to make a chicken egg. But if you've got 40 of them in a pen, you've got the equivalent of a lot of eggs every day. And they do make a decent meat carcass, and they're so easy to process. You almost don't need tools. You can pretty much use a pair of shears and do the whole job. And they're going to be like a tiny little, like, Cornish freaking hen, a little bitty bird. If you ever hunted for quail, you kind of know what I'm talking about. Or dove, pigeon, squab. It's in that same area. They're delicious. A grown man's going to need a couple of them for a meal, but you can raise a ridiculous amount in a small space. Downsides are going to be that you don't have an animal you can free range. You can't really put them out on grass very well. Some people have tried tractoring them, but they are small. They get out of everything, and everything eats them, from house cats and minks all the way up to whatever. They're very fragile birds. So the rabbit hutch model seems to work very well. Some folks will raise them in specific cages that are like stacked cages that are built for them, kind of like battery hens. They can handle cage life a lot better than chickens because they're so small. But they do require a very high protein feed, like a game bird feed, like you would feed young growing turkeys. You're looking at something that's like 26, 27, 30% protein. So they can be a bit expensive to feed. And finding good quality feed, if you're trying to avoid, say, soy, can be a challenge. That's something to consider. So do your homework, ask some questions. There's a lot of people in this community who have raised them. I don't raise them myself anymore because I can't justify the feed bill and raising yet another bird in a cage when I can free range my other birds, and I don't need meat or eggs. I've got plenty from my other birds. But if you're in a small lot in a restricted space, it's an excellent choice. Excellent choice. And I think it's a great way, even if you don't have room to do chickens, you might be able to get away with quail and nobody even knows you have them. So worth looking into. Before I jump on, that's number 2. I'm going to go through the comments here a little bit because I see you guys are doing a bunch up here. Let's see. Let's catch up. Lot says we should do zebra. Yeah. Where are we talking here? Porcupine, right? He's just over here trolling. Let's see. Robin says, stop to say hey and click the thumbs up. Appreciate it, Robin. Thank you for dropping in. Yes, we are a wholesome group and we are family friendly. Bring your kids. Yes, if you want your kids corrupted, come on over to Telegram. No, it is the chatter over there can get quite interesting at times, but it is also very educational when people allow it to be. Let's see here. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. Oh, is that an actual? Is there 1,675 breeds, Brian, or are you just throwing a number out there? Let's see here. Don't lie to people. Yeah, they probably are just making up numbers. I think there's probably actually more chicken breeds than that. And yeah, he's right. It is going to suck to process, and he hates doing chickens. Everybody hates processing poultry. However, we are looking at something that the reason I mention chickens is because you get multiple uses out of them. I don't go out of my way to raise them for meat. I have access to good chicken if I want it, but I raise them for eggs, for insect control, for turning compost. They're great workhorses on the homestead. And most people can get away with having a couple of them. And I think they're one of the most sustainable animals you can have. They are omnivores. They can have a very, very diet. So they're an easy animal to raise. It's a lot of work for a little bit to process them. So just know what you're getting into there. And let's see here. Yeah, Robin says she had 2 Brahmins and something ate them that wasn't human. It does happen with chickens. You've got to protect them, and it can be pretty tricky. And yeah, F1, he says F1 crosses with the hybrid vigor. That's the way to go. Kyle says with when it comes to meat chickens, correct. I would not suggest going the meat route for the first time for somebody. If you've never raised poultry, don't jump into trying to raise meat birds right off the bat with that purpose in mind, because it's kind of hard mode. Salmon Favorel, Lisa mentions, are a wonderful chicken. I've heard good things, never raised them myself. And let's see here. Dun, dun, dun. And Backus Butcher said he did a ton. Yep. Yeah, Lot said he had shitloads of them. He did until he had about 500 at one point in the garage. And that's the crazy numbers. I had at one point 160 in a fairly decent sized coop, but it was still a fairly small area on my back porch. And my neighbors didn't care. I washed down that gnat. My neighbors didn't care because I gave them eggs. So, it was technically, there was nothing in the local ordinances that said anything about quail. So, it was one of those things. I just did it. And I figure if one day somebody catches me, then I'll have to deal with it. So let's see here. Yeah, Golden Cricket says she tried an aviary and it didn't go well. Quail are interesting in that they like to pop up if they're flushed, if they're spooked. So, yeah, you either have to want to have a fairly short ceiling, like rabbit hutch ceiling, without too tall of a roof. You don't want to go like 3 foot tall, or you want to have unlimited space for them to go up. Not really unlimited, but like 6, 7, 8 foot. Because if you got like a 4 foot cage and they jump up, they'll get enough speed. By the time they do, they'll pop up, break their neck. They hit their head on the top, and it's sad. You hate to see it happen. If it's a shorter, they don't produce enough speed by the time they reach that height to hurt themselves. And then if it's tall enough, or if say it's got like a netted roof, they just pop up and they settle back down. They sort of slow down before they really hit the top. And I don't like netted roofs, though, especially with things like quail, because so many things eat them and it's easy to tear in. So let's see here. Where are we here? Let's skip past a few things and get it going here. Oh, yeah. So he sold 125 dozen eggs a week, Brian says, from the Lots Project. He sold a ton of eggs. And that's the other thing. If you are trying to find a way to make a little money and you got some space, quail can be in demand. I know he sort of saturated his local market at one point. So many people were buying quail or hatching eggs from him. He was also selling in the pet food market, selling eggs and live quail and stuff to folks that, live quail, but whole quail to folks that were feeding reptiles, that were feeding dogs and things like that. And they wanted the natural diet. Man, it's a great way to produce a ton of very small meat, but quantity-wise, like in whole, you can produce a lot of meat. They're very efficient. Let's see here. What else we got? We're going to jump ahead here. Golden Cricket says she doesn't mind processing chickens. It's the ducks that take forever. Ducks are a little bit more work even when it comes to the processing, but they can be worth it because they're so fucking delicious. Let's see here. Lisa says she likes to process chickens. Maybe she's demented. That's great. You should probably broadcast that and let people know. Maybe you'll get some work processing some chickens because no, it's one of those. If you and yes, the old Lone Star beer, that's correct. They haven't started sponsoring me yet on the show, but they should. No, I'm at home. I'm not hanging out in the car, so I can have a couple of them while I'm sitting here. I know Brian misses them. He got to try one or two while he was down here in Texas, and kind of became a favorite. So let's see here. Oh wow, yeah, Brian. Oh yeah, I'm not going to read that one out there because I don't want to incriminate Backwoods too much. But yeah, he's having a good old time. So what's next? What's next, folks? We've got two types of poultry on the list. We've got quail. We've got the chickens. What else could you possibly do starting out? What would be another good first animal to jump into, especially if you only have a little bit of space in your backyard? Rabbits. Yes, that's right. Do I raise rabbits? No. Have I tried in the past? Yes. Why do I recommend them if I don't now? Climate. There's a lot of folks here in the audience now that have raised rabbits, do raise rabbits, or were very, very heavily involved in it. A lot of really great community members, a lot of great resources, a lot of great people to lean on if you have questions, if you want to get into it. Brian from the Lots Project, Kyle of Backwoods Butcher, Nate and Aaron from Two Chicks Homestead. They're all either have or currently do raise rabbits at a decent scale. And they're an excellent animal in a small space. They're herbivores. You can pretty much grow all their own food if you're dedicated enough and you got the resources to do it. They're cheap to feed otherwise. They're easy and cheap to house. They're very productive. If you are able to pull it off, a female rabbit can honestly produce about as much meat as a small fucking cow in a year if you actually compound how much you can get out of them with the amount of times they can breed. And a processed rabbit is very similar to chicken in the ways you can use it. I'm not saying it tastes exactly like chicken. It has its own unique flavor, but you can utilize it in the same way. And it's so easy and it's so sustainable. Why don't I raise rabbits? Because I live in Texas and it's hot as fuck the majority of the year. And one issue with rabbits is they don't handle heat as well, and not having so much, just leaving them out in the heat to bake. Like, it's not like I'm not providing shade or trying to take ways to cool for them, like some cold bottles or tiles or something like that. It's that the males, the bucks, actually over a certain temperature will go sterile. Like they get hot enough that their sperm is not mobile anymore and does not allow them to breed properly. So I was looking at, I'm either going to have to build a way for them to live fairly underground in an air-conditioned barn. And I have so much stuff going on and so many other irons in the fire and so much other livestock that I can get away with raising that it wasn't worth it for me to try to raise something in an air-conditioned environment. So I said, fuck that, and just kind of threw in the towel. I have tried and I have worked with it. And a lot of folks, even folks in my area, have been very successful with them. So I do want to mention it. And I think it's one of the top animals that I would recommend somebody get into if they want to be sustainable. Because like I said, especially if you are interested in raising fodder plants, you can pretty much grow all their own food on a fairly small plot. And you can get an insane amount of productivity out of an animal raising these things in coops, or not really coops, rabbit hutches. And some folks even go with the colony method. There's pros and cons there. I'm not going to dig into it super, super deep because I'm not going to speak as an expert on something I haven't done. But some of the breeds that are common, and this is another one that was mentioned by, as I said earlier, we had some Nostr followers mentioned that they raise silver fox, which is a great breed. That's it's a larger breed. It's more of a meat breed that also is known for having a good pelt. That's another thing. There's more you can do with it. You can actually utilize rabbit pelts. Nate and Aaron from Two Chicks Homestead, they actually sell rabbit foot like keychains and things like that. That was one thing that was in one of the giveaways on the last week's episode was rabbit foot keychain from rabbits that they actually raised and processed. There's a lot of other uses for them, and it's great in the pet food market. I know I was just talking on a live stream earlier with Jack and Nicole. We're on with John Willis, and he actually raises a bunch of rabbits specifically to feed his dogs. So they're on that raw food diet, and it's a great sustainable way for him to actually feed his own animals. So there's so many reasons that you should look into it if it's right for you. But aside from silver fox, other breeds that I've actually tried myself and I do well around around me, and this is kind of skewed towards warmer climates. New Zealand and Californian are both very common and popular meat breeds because they do well in hotter climates or do well in the summer, and they also are more of a fine-boned rabbit in that they put on more meat without it being all bone. If you do something like some of the giant breeds, they get big, but they take a while. It's sort of like the large breed chickens. There's a lot of bone, and they eventually put on a lot of meat, but it takes them a bit to get there. So those are efficient meat breeds. And since rabbits don't lay eggs, I would say if you were going to start, you should probably start with a meat breed and go from there. Now, some folks like to dive into more animals like Angoras that have interesting pelts. And I know Brian could probably speak a lot more on that. But yeah, let's see what the comments say on it and what everybody thinks. Let's see here. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, okay. That's hilarious, Brian. We're not going to mess with that. No, I think I'll pass. He mentioned cats. Yeah, cats are not really a sustainable meat animal by any means. No, I'm not knocking on anybody's culture. If that's something you want to eat, go for it, man. There's a lot of cats out there. But yeah, no, it's a meat eater. You're going to have to raise something for it to eat. Let's see here. But yes, Backwoods says he did raise rabbits, but Brian did a lot more. He did. And we've talked about that a couple of times, and he's done some full episodes on his show. He's actually got some really cool YouTube videos, Brian at the Lots Project, on specifically raising rabbits and some of the ins and outs of it. So be sure to check his stuff out too. And yeah, Golden Cricket says rabbits are dog food. Yeah, they're a great source for it too. Those and quail are actually a great way to feed dogs if you're trying to do so. Lisa's mentioning sheep. Yes, sheep does not make my list right now of people of things for people to enter into because you actually got to have some grazing space. I think they're a great animal to get into and to use. They're sustainable as much as Backwoods hates them. They're a great option. I think you should look at sheep or goats before you look at cattle. Cattle also do not make the list, and goats don't make the list as an entry-level animal for me, at least. I'm not saying you shouldn't look into it, but for my list, it's not that ground floor livestock. I think you should probably dive into some of these things I'm suggesting and have some experience with animal husbandry before you jump to something like sheep or goats, because they're a little bit more of a time and space and fencing commitment. Let's see here. Yeah, Brian says he quit rabbits. Yeah, he quit rabbits, but he also quit the homestead and all of the poultry and everything too, because they went on the road. They're living the RV life now. So, but I know he does. He likes. He can respect the value of them, and I'm sure he has a lot to speak on. It's a great resource for if you are looking to raise them. I've seen him chip in with even Nate and Aaron, who are currently raising rabbits, and give them some great advice on some of his experiences in the past. So that's the beautiful thing about the Telegram group and all of these connected communities, that there's a ton of people who have done this and not only have the background to show it, but have a ton of advice to share. Let's see here. Golden Cricket said they harvested like 20 this week. Rabbits, damn. You guys are rocking and rolling. All right, let's see here. What else we got here? Oh, man. This needs a new buck. Yep, don't rely on the city teens. So I get that. Let them dig. Heat problem solved. Yeah, that's another thing, though. As far as letting them dig, for one, you've got to have a space that they can do so. Another issue here is my particular part of Texas is very wet. It's a very wet climate. It's almost Louisiana-like. And during the rainier season, right at the beginning of the hot season, man, it's so wet out here. Sometimes the water table is a couple inches below the ground. So if they're in that situation, you're going to have drowned rabbits. It's just one of those things. I would love to set something up. I just have not found a good way to make it work for me. I know some other folks have, and hopefully it would work for you. I think it's something you should research, and it's a very individual type thing. I've made the choice not to go forward with them that much. Let's see here. Dun, dun, dun. What she says, in the valley, they did it all right, and you've had litters in the summer since they had burrows. That's right, but you are also in a dry climate. You are in a warm, dry climate. I'm in a warm, very wet. I get about 55 to 60 inches of rain a year, most years. And a lot of that comes at one time. So it's different. It's a trick here. I would love to do more with it, but at the same time, I don't need to either. So there is that. She said 3/4 pound grow out for most dogs, eating twice a day. Okay, fair enough. Kyle's got a great breakdown video coming up tonight. Is it on sheep or is it on rabbits? What are you talking about there, Kyle? Let's see. Pigeons. Actually, pigeons are not a bad idea. Squab has a place, and the breakdown on them and the use for them would be similar to quail, but it's not a super popular livestock. Excuse me. Something worth looking into, though. Frogs. That we might dive into that later. That was teased and actually asked last week if there would be an episode on small livestock processing, or not even livestock, small game processing. And between everybody who's raised small livestock or been a hunter, I think there's enough people in the audience or with a background like mine that have some experience in it. Some probably way more than I do when it comes to small game processing. We may do a roundtable episode. We just got to find times that's going to work for everybody. But I'd love to have 4 or 5 people together and just go through, collect some audience questions, and just go through and talk about our experience between hunted birds, rabbits, squirrel, things like that, and talk about processing, recipes, ideas, things like that, and maybe kind of tie it back to small scale processing, like, farm raised rabbits and quail and things like that. So we will see. He's talking about goat breakdown. Kyle is talking about goat breakdown. Okay. Gotcha. Here we go. And, Brian asked, why be popular? No, as far as the pigeons being popular or not, it's not so much that it's a popular thing. They're a little bit harder to source. No, if you live anywhere near a city, I'm sure you could probably get a hold of some, but there are some interesting aspects to raising pigeons or squab for meat. And you're basically setting up a covey. You're setting up like a large birdhouse and maintaining that and harvesting the young pigeons before they get too large, while the adults actually do pigeon things and fly around and eat whatever. And it's a really cool idea. A lot of folks who are even in cities get away with doing it. I think it's a little bit more involved than most people who are just kind of dipping their toe in the water of raising an animal for the first time want to get into. Not discouraging you looking into it, but it's not the first place I'd go. Let's see here. And it's right. Brian said he'll talk about geese and ducks, wild geese and ducks, because he used to really hunt a lot of waterfowl. So kind of why I said we've got enough people who hunt or have hunted smaller game in the past. I mean, we're going to start talking about deer or something like that. Yeah, that's all up my alley. But I've not done it. I've hunted small game, but not like to the scale of some other folks. So it's one of those that would be a great episode to get that collaborative type thing. And those are always fun episodes. So I think it'd be great. Well, let's jump on to it. We're down to 3. We've got 2 more on the list. And man, we're already 45 minutes in. What's the next thing? Well, yeah, I know you're going to hate it, golden crickets, but I'm talking about ducks. And that's the same reason that you're raising them, though. Ducks can be such a productive animal. And I feel like, from my personal experience, it's not only one of my favorite small-scale animals to raise for multiple reasons. You hear the geese screaming outside. Yeah, no, speaking of waterfowl, but ducks can be so ridiculously productive. There are some different things you need to do to actually provide for them versus chickens, but they're not that hard. And man, they have some benefits. They have some serious benefits over chickens. So I couldn't do a list like this without mentioning them. And it's also an interesting topic. It's a little bifurcated. There are 2 species of ducks specifically that are very good for their own reasons. The first one I would be amiss not bringing them up is Muscovy ducks. Muscovy ducks are barely a duck. They technically are, but they are not what you consider a normal duck. These are not your normal ducks. If you're in a northern climate, you're going to see in a pond. They're not your Pekin ducks. They're not your standard mallard ducks. They're a South American breed of perching duck that actually, they have big claws. They live up in trees. They fly very well, but they're also excellent mothers. They do lay well, but it's more seasonal. They're very close to a wild bird. There's not much difference between a domestic Muscovy duck and a wild Muscovy duck, and they can interbreed freely. Some of the domestic lines of them are very heavy-bodied, but even the wild ones are sizable animals. They're also very sexually dimorphic in that the males are much larger than the females. The females are some of the best mothers in the poultry world. They will hatch any damn egg they can get their little beaks on. They have a long hatching period naturally. So anything you shove under them, as long as you time it right, it's probably going to hatch. And they're going to mother the fuck out of that thing until it's ready to go and be on its own. I have had them raise other types of waterfowl. They've accidentally raised a few types of chickens and stuff. That can get interesting, but they're very, very good mothers, very protective, very good at teaching them how to actually go and be a bird and forage. They're also excellent hunters. They are in the top tier of insect hunters. Like with the gnats I've been dealing with in the house, I've been tempted to actually keep one in the house for a little bit and let it clean up some bugs. If it wasn't for the fact that when they shit, it's like a fire hose. It's ridiculous. So that they're not a good indoor animal by any means. But they are also quiet. If you've been around ducks and you've heard, especially female ducks, they quack loudly. Muscovies really don't. They've got interesting personalities. They're like a little puppy dog, especially if you've hand raised them. The males, some people call it hissing. It's really not. They have a huffing. That's like it's a breathy type thing that they do. They wag their tails like a dog. They're very excited, very personable animals. Especially hand raised, they'll come up and nibble on your fingers. They're more like a goose in their personalities. And the males get pretty good size. I'm talking 12, 15-pound carcasses at times once they get mature. Like any duck, though, we're going to touch on this a little bit later. When it comes to waterfowl, you've got to keep them that they need to have a low number of males to females, or they sort of overwork the females. They're very, very aggressive in their breeding, and it can be very hard on the females. So they're best keeping it like one male to every 4 to 6 females seems to be the ideal rate, which it sucks because they are such a personable bird, but you do have to cull your extra males if you hatch them out. The males, though, are the best eating. They're the biggest meat-producing birds, and they get big fast. They really do. They grow out fairly quickly, and they're excellent. A Muscovy duck is not quite like a regular duck if you've eaten it. They're more of a red meat. If you take Muscovy duck breast, you're going to think it's sirloin steak. It's a red, beefy meat. My way of processing them, I know Golden Crickets was talking here in the audience a little bit about how much more work they are. The feathers on ducks are very, very tough. There's wax methods and things like that and ways to help pluck them. And usually I just end up hand plucking the breasts, keeping that crispy skin on them, grilling those up as individual pieces. Sometimes I take the leg portions out. Usually I just skin them for time. And the rest of the carcass goes in a crock pot. And it'll look bird-shaped, but it's going to taste like a beef roast. Excuse me. It's ridiculous. They do so well. They're more of a hot weather bird. They do very well in warm climates, but they can survive some colder winters. Folks up north even do have them. They do need some winter protection. I know some folks that are in Canada, up in like Michigan and things like that, have had some issues in really cold winters. They do need some shelter. They don't do bad. They do about as well as most chickens, but if they're young, especially when the cold weather sets in, it can be hard on them. They are a South American bird, so keep that in mind. Then again, chickens came from Asian jungles originally, and they've been bred to be pretty cold resistant. So especially once they get to adult size, they've got such heavy feathering and down that they tend to be able to shake it off and handle it pretty well. So you're not going to get any laying out of them that time of year or not. But as far as other types of ducks go, we go to most of the other ducks that we're used to are all bred from the standard mallard, the wild mallard duck that we're used to seeing around. And you can still actually get mallard eggs and raise those small breed ducks. They're going to be almost considered a call duck or a small, like a midget duck in the livestock size frame. But I actually think that most folks, if they get into it, should start with a meat breed duck. Why? Because ducks lay way better than chickens do, just naturally. Mallard-based ducks are ridiculous in their laying capacity. So if you have a meat breed duck, they lay about as well as your average dual-purpose chicken, if not better. And then if you look at some of the more egg-producing bred ducks, like your runners, your Welsh harlequins, I'm thinking of, there's a million different breeds of them that I could rattle off. But the ones that are more geared towards egg laying specific, they're like robots. They're like machines. You've got a hen laying 6-7 eggs a week. And unlike a chicken that kind of runs out of egg cells after a couple of years, they'll lay till 5, 6 years old. They're born with a ton more ovum, and they're just machines when it comes to laying. So your regular, like I raise Pekin ducks primarily. I do have some other breeds that are mixed in with them: Pekins, Rowans, large, heavy breed ducks. They have some advantages. They're going to lay 4 to 5 eggs a week, so about as well as most chickens. Their eggs are larger, their eggs are richer, their eggs have more yolk to them. They're better to eat. Honestly, I love them. They're better for baking. Some folks are sensitive to them, but some folks who can't have chicken eggs can have duck eggs and vice versa. So find out what works for you. I prefer a duck egg over a chicken egg 90% of the time when it comes to just an eating egg. And they just don't care. They will fire a duck egg out of their butt wherever they're running around. They do not have as much of a broody, you've got to fight them off nest instinct as most of the chicken breeds that are very good layers. So it does make it easy, especially if you keep them penned up for the first couple hours of sunlight. They usually will do all their laying inside their pen, and then they let them out. They love to run around, chase bugs. They love to run around and play in the water. And you don't really have to have a pond for them. That's a little bit of a misnomer and the concern that everybody has. Muscovy ducks really don't need a pond at all. They will get in the water and they will play. They need access to water they can dip their head in, but they don't need a full-size pond. Domestic ducks, when it comes to the mallard side of things, it's good to have some sort of water they can swim in and get in to bathe in. That's part of how they keep clean. They do need water they can at least dip their whole head into. Because the way their nasal cavities are built, they actually have to flush things out of their sinus cavities. They're built to dabble and suck water through their sinus cavity to filter things out. So they can get nasal infections if you don't. It's usually not a big deal. My solution is to have multiple kiddie pools like you can buy at the Dollar General or Walmart. And I put them next to garden beds that are fenced off to keep the birds out. And let the ducks go in and do what they do. And as soon as they hit that water, they're muddying it up. They're going to shit when they hit that water. It's very fertile. And I tip those out, throw them out in different areas that need fertility, move them around, fill them back up. And it's a little bit extra work, but it is worth it for what you get out of these ducks. The other big thing about these heavy breed ducks is, especially Pekins, Rowans, things like that, man, you get to 10, 12 weeks old, you got a full-size duck. They grow so fast. I mean, if you're going for meat production, honestly, I don't think Cornish cross can even hold a candle to how quickly a meat breed duck can produce. Yes, maybe they max out a week or two earlier, but that duck is still going to be bigger than that meat breed chicken. And if you've ever ate farm raised duck versus chicken, I'll take a duck carcass any day of the week. They also produce some of the best cooking fat in the world. If you've never had duck fat on potatoes, man, you're missing out. They're absolutely fucking delicious. And as we've talked about, producing fat, quality fat on a homestead, actually yourself at home, it's a difficult thing. Not everybody can grow avocados. So it's worth checking into. Definitely worth checking into. I love them. I think they're a little bit more work to raise in that they're messier. You have to deal with water. You're going to have to clean the pens out a little bit more, but the trade-offs are definitely worth it for what they produce between eggs and carcass. They just make a better dual-purpose bird for me than a chicken. They're also more resistant to disease. They handle wet weather better, which is really good in my climate, and they handle winters better as well. And because they're in the water all the time, the hot summers, they shrug it right off because they just jump in that water and they cool off. So, do your research on it. You may want to try some. Downsides, they're messy, they shit everywhere, and they're loud, especially the mallard breed ones, the females. So, and you do have to cull males a little bit harder. It's important to keep your rooster level lower, of course, when it comes to chickens. Ducks, I hate to actually be brash about it. You can look it up. Waterfowl are one of the few sects of birds that actually have a external penis. And with ducks, it's this terrifying giant corkscrew thing. And when they overbreed females and the males tend to run in a pack and like gang rape females, it can be really hard on them. And you get to a point where they will literally kill female ducks because they all just pound them at the same time. And it's rough. It's rough. It's a hard thing to do. And then it's an exponential problem. If you have an equal amount of male and females, eventually they're going to start being hard on the females. You're going to lose females. Now they're really hard on the females over there. So you've really got to accept the fact that you're going to have to cull back those males when they're young, or you will pay the price and it's going to suck and it's going to be a mistake you're going to regret. So understand going into it, you're going to have to take that responsibility of managing their numbers. You get meat out of it, but no going in, that means you're going to have to kill ducks, or you're going to have to separate and deal with the fact that some of these are going to need to be processed. So no going into it, that's a part of it. Let's jump on these comments here again real quick, because I've seen it scrolling like crazy before I get to the number 5. Let's see here. Dun, 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 dun. Backward says, don't lie to these people. No, I'm not going to lie to people. I'm going to be honest with there's responsibility when it comes down to it. Robin says, Mr. Holstein hates Muscovy. You've never raised them. You have Pekins and Rowans. I'm curious as to why he specifically hates Muscovy. Is it he doesn't like the taste of them? He hates having them around? Just curious, what is it that he hates about them? Golden Cricket says she loves Muscovies. You're actually transitioning to only Muscovies away from chicken. And I can understand that. I like to have a little bit of both, mainly because chickens are very good at scratching and turning. One thing that I've done off and on throughout the years, and I've slacked on a little bit, but it does help. I will keep my ducks and my chickens together in coops, in pens overnight. And sometimes what I like to do is have specific areas that the chickens can go up, because they like to roost up on things. Give them spots where they can go up in, and I can cage them off, separate that, like maybe hang some like large size dog kennels or whatnot up inside of a coop with their roosts, so they can be cordoned off and closed in. And in the morning, I'll let the ducks out. And because the bedding will get all nasty, ducks, they're always in the water. They drink a ton. It gets in their feces. It comes out as one thing, so it's very wet. That can make very messy bedding. If you do deep litter method, especially if you can use hardwood chips, if you have access to them, it really helps. What I would do would be let those chickens out during the day, and that wet, nasty bedding, before it gets too overwhelmingly wet, nasty, and just mud, let them come in and scratch and turn and rotate that bedding for you. And it really does help. Otherwise, you can go in and turn it with a pitchfork if you want. But if I can have a bird spend a couple hours in there turning around, digging through, finding anything the ducks missed, eating any fly larvae, it's a sustainable way to do it. And then those chickens get to come out and forage and do their things the rest of the time during the day too. So that's one way I've managed it in the past. Like I said, I haven't had the time to do it that way as much lately, but it is an option and it's worth looking into. Let's see here. They break chicken eggs, so be careful putting chicken eggs under them. Yes, Muscovies can break chicken eggs, especially some of the really thinner eggs. And the other trick about it is, I've run into this before, like brooding chickens and ducks together. Sometimes you get issues where when they grow up together, they imprint and they see each other as the same thing. So you'll have roosters that see ducks as the female to breed and vice versa. A duck breeding a chicken can be catastrophic. They're not built physically for being bred by a duck. And it can be really, if they can get a hold of them, chickens tend to run faster. Ducks are aggressive little rapey predators. They will chase them down and harass them all day long. Roosters can be pretty hard on ducks. And I can tell you what, it's very frustrating when you've got a whole batch of roosters that see ducks as the thing to breed. They ignore the chickens and they spend all day running like a track star, chasing down every duck they see. As soon as I had this with Muscovies too. Every time one of the Muscovies would land in the yard because they'd go up and fly, they would be harassed by these roosters just going to jump on and breed. And it can cause some barnyard issues. So I'm not saying it's not going to work. I've had it work in the past. But, man, mixing species like that can be kind of interesting. Let's see here. And yes, Muscovies are very cute in their little cooing noises they make. Especially the females, they make these little trilling cooing noises. And they're very personable, cool birds. I really do enjoy having them around. Honestly, after having Muscovies, I can't imagine not having them running around the place. She said she has a drake named Prince Philip. That's funny. And depending on the drake, Philip needs 8+ girls to keep him away from the chickens. Yeah, they are horny bastards. They really, really are. And Lisa says, so I'm saying females are loudmouths. Well, as a loudmouth male, I can't really say that. But ducks specifically, especially when we were talking about regular domestic ducks, mallard-derived ducks. The females, that's how one of the first indications where you can tell long before there's any physical differences of what's a male and a female. Female ducks have that loud quack, that cartoon quack. It's what you always hear when you hear ducks. It's that very loud quack, quack, quack. And the males are more hoarse, like I swallow the fly. They're going to sound like a frog, almost with that low, deep kind of crack, crack, rasping croak, but it's about half the volume. So the females, they like to chat, they like to talk all day, and if you're in a neighborhood, depending on your neighbors and whether they enjoy the sounds of ducks, may not like the fact that all day long they want to very loudly talk with each other. So some people really don't like the noise. To me, I enjoy the sounds that they make. I do. It just becomes part of the farm. Let's see here. Golden Cricket says, hers lay to brood only, it seems, but they will sit on 20 plus eggs. Yes, Muscovies do tend to, instead of being like, so domestic ducks have been bred to just breed heavily throughout the rest of the year. Muscovies still are very close to their wild counterparts, and they're much like turkeys in that way, or some of the more older fashioned chicken breeds, in that they specifically lay with the intention of filling a nest to hatch. They are hatching machines. They are the best incubators on the planet, I swear. But if they're laying eggs with the intention of filling up a nest, and you are not going to touch those fucking eggs until they're done. So yeah, keep that in mind. One thing you can do is, if you keep up with it and you need to daily collect your eggs with any poultry that you're raising, if you do not want them to actually raise a clutch, not only because it doesn't just make your life easier, you're not going to have a clue what eggs are fresh or which eggs aren't if you're not daily picking and pulling your eggs. So if Muscovies, you get to that right time of year, and for me in my climate, it's most of the year where it's suitable for them to hatch. Outside of the very depth of the heat of summer and the coldest parts of the winter, the Muscovies they want to be laying. They want to be hatching. They're very good mothers. They have that drive. So if you're constantly collecting eggs, they're constantly trying to fill a nest. And you can probably get 150, 200 eggs out of a Muscovy hen. They're not the top dogs when it comes to egg production, but they do lay well. And when they lay, it's like with a purpose. They're going to lay daily. Let's see here. Golden Cricket says no Muscovies, no matter what the sex, they don't make duck noises. Mostly. The females, when they're startled, they will quack. And it's only when they're like terrified, pissed off, flying away, trying to get away from you. And it's only like one very large, loud, startled quack. I've run into that too, and it all surprises me when it happens because you really never expect it. Let's see here. And yes, like Lisa says, you can't get around the extra skin around the eyes, and it is funky. Yes, they're like a turkey in that way. They've got that weird, it's called it's like wattles. No, maybe that's not the right word. It's caruncles. Caruncles is the word. They've got those bald faces, the red faces, the extra. They look funky. They're ugly in that way, but it does grow on you. In a way, they're kind of pretty in their own weird way. But they make up for it in their other aspects. Let's see. And then, yeah, Golden Cricket says she was not a fan of Muscovies for the same reason, but once you ate it, you didn't care. They are a delicious bird. There's nothing else I've ever raised that tastes quite like Muscovy. Cattle. They're like the beefiest bird you'll ever eat. Let's see here. And Golden Crickets used to raise runners, but switch 100% to Muscovy. I don't blame you. It's a good way to go. And I don't know what you mean by dogs lay eggs. Maybe I misspoke somewhere. But no, they may act like dogs, but they're not. They're not. Let's see here. So what is my last on the list? What is the number 5 thing? What did I hold back for is one of probably the most productive things that you can raise. And this is a difficult one because not everybody's going to be able to do it. You're going to need space. You've got to have room for it. And it's going to take some fencing. I avoided breeds, animals, species on this list that require a lot of infrastructure. This is the exception. And it's with caveats. And that's going to be pigs. Anybody who's raised pigs and who's processed pigs understands why. For the work you put in, for the feed you put in, for the time you put in, not only are pigs probably one of the most productive things that you can do, they're one of the easiest things to process if you look at the total amount of effort that goes in and you get the most out. And I'm not suggesting everybody go and raise a 300-400 pound Berkshire carcass, because that's not sustainable for the majority of folks. But there are a lot of small breeds of pigs, and I've raised several of them myself in smaller areas. And I can tell you right now, I've gotten the most out of pigs of anything else that I've raised. And that's why I couldn't leave them off this list in good conscience. And some of the breeds that I've raised have been holy crap geese. By the way, if you do ever get into geese, there are two types of geese that you can raise. There are regular domestic geese that are based off gray leg geese. There are swan geese, which are going to be your Chinese and your African. And I can tell you right now, I will never on purpose actually go and get more swan geese based Chinese geese, African geese, because they're loud mouths. They don't shut up screaming all day, especially if you have a pair and you have one hot-headed male that wants to run around with this female who wants to try to pick on everybody else, including me, chase you around and tell her man to go and yell at them because, yeah. So anyway, barnyard frustrations. Back to pigs. What have I raised? Well, when I first got into pigs, I was kind of halfway gifted a couple of potbelly pigs. And I know, oh my God, the bad word, the scariness of saying, how could you use a pet pig breed for meat? They were originally bred for meat. They are often called in the homesteading circles Asian heritage hogs, because they were bred in Vietnam for a small scale meat production pig. They actually would have them go out and run around and forage in the jungle by themselves and then come back during the day. They would raise whole herds of them specifically because they were so self-sufficient, but also in a climate, in an area where you don't have infrastructure, you don't have refrigeration, you've got to be able to use the whole animal before it spoils. You've also got to be able to find a way to sustainably produce fat for the human diet. Pigs are excellent for that. And potbellies are great at producing lard. In fact, the hardest thing about it is restricting their diet if you raise them in a pen so that you don't cause them to become too fat. You'll have nothing but lard. But I can tell you right now, they are so easy to raise. And you can actually get away with raising quite a few in a small area. I'm not suggesting you should, but I even tractored pigs at one point. In like a 10 by 10 dog kennel, I'd have 4 or 5 extra males that I would move that kennel around, or I would just sack feed them. And they don't have to get big. You don't have to raise them to huge. You can take these males when they're young, cull them about the size of a large rabbit, put them in the crock pot. There's nothing wrong with eating them that size. And they're excellent eating. They're excellent eating. You're not going to get full-size pork chops off of them. You're not going to get a full-size pork butt roast off of them. You're not going to get a whole huge Christmas ham off of a potbelly pig. But I can tell you right now, they make excellent sausage. They're great whole in the crock pot. When they get a little bit bigger, you can get some decent-sized cuts off of them. And if you're doing it small scale, they eat so much less than a full-size pig. I mean, honestly, I probably spent less raising potbelly pigs than I have raising the same amount of chickens as far as feed goes. And they are a meaty little freaking animal. They grow fairly quickly. They finish out quickly. They're fun to have around. Honestly, the hardest part is they're so personable and so friendly that they can be hard to cull and hard to process, because they're like having a puppy dog around. But pigs are delicious. I mean, I'm sure everybody here loves pork, loves sausage. I know some of y'all in the comments love sausage. I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to say probably the majority of you here right now. I will call out Brian over there from the Lots Project. I know he loves some good sausage. Kyle, we'll talk later. No, but I know Kyle is going to weigh in on this, and I'm sure he has. I'm going to read comments here in a bit, but I know he is echoing this, that pigs, honestly, he's raising bigger pigs. He's pasturing pigs. And the infrastructure requirements can be a lot when you're going that route. But there is a lot of stuff that you can do with small breed pigs. I did a lot with potbellies. I dove into some other breeds. American guinea hogs. They're quite a bit larger. They take longer to finish out. And I was going to do some crossbreeding work with them. The stock I got wasn't the best. They ended up not being great mothers. But they were delicious. They were absolutely fucking delicious. And they're very similar. They're a good pastured pig, and that, you know, they're not going to root as much if they got access to good greenery. They still need some other things in their diet, but they're pretty light on the landscape if you are going to pasture those. But they do produce a ton of fat if you're going to give them a bunch of grain. So be careful with that. Other great breeds that I know of for sure, there's Gloucester Old Spots are getting very popular. They're a little bit harder to find around here. It's an older fashioned, smaller European breed, but I've been seeing them really increase in demand and popularity lately. In fact, Tiffany from Backyard Butchery, who was on a couple of months back, she's gotten into breeding some of those and raising them. So worth looking into. Done very well for her in Oklahoma. Another one I'm seeing getting very popular is Idaho pasture pigs, which are kind of a breed that's a mix of multiples. I know that Kyle has gotten in a lot with what is it? The Osaba Island hogs, and those were a very interesting use case. Some pigs were kind of dumped on an isolated island by the Spaniards way back, and these pigs sort of genetically developed to their difficult climate where food was sometimes restricted. And they're very, very hardy, very, very genetically resistant to disease, but also very efficient at producing, or taking the calories they get and producing meat. And if they're fed well, they will produce an excess of fat. So very cool to especially intermix with other breeds of pig, because they bring in a lot of genetic hardiness, but also for a leaner breed, they can balance that out. Kunes are very, very popular. And that is a breed that was specifically bred to be more of a pastured pig. They do very well on eating hay, graze. They will do some rooting if they don't have access to other things, but they're also a breed that they are so good at converting vegetable matter into, not ideal vegetable matter like grasses and things like that into meat, that if you give them something that is very calorie dense like grain, they can produce fat way too fast to become obese. So potbellies are much the same way. So these are all breeds that not only do you not have to feed them a ton to get a good yield out of them, you don't want to feed them a ton. You want to be careful. So I think pasture raising pork is the ideal way to go. But if you don't have access to that, you've only got a small pen, or you can only move a pen around, small breed hogs are an excellent way to produce meat on a homestead. And I think everybody should at least look into it. There are downsides. Pigs can stink, especially if you don't manage it well enough. If you are keeping them in a set pen, if you're not moving it around enough or able to clean it out. Larger pigs can be aggressive, and they can be a challenge to deal with. Usually not too big of an issue with your smaller breeds, but you get an aggressive boar, you've also going to have to manage that. If you're going to breed your own, you're going to have to keep your boar separate in its own pen, and that boar is going to be very motivated to break out and get to them females. Ask Kyle how he knows. I've had to deal with that myself. And even a small pig are ridiculously strong in their ability to root, lift gates, flip things over, break out of pens. They're strong boogers. Pigs are hard to fence in. If a pig wants out, and especially once a pig learns it can get out, it's probably going to keep getting out until you put it in the freezer. They're delicious. They're fairly easy to process. It does take some infrastructure to be able to do the job right. But for the amount of work that you put into it, you get a ridiculous amount of meat for what you put into them. So that's why they make the list as the big number 5. Let's hit the comments and see what people's thoughts are here. All right, here. Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. Backwoods is making bacon. Yes, absolutely. And that's another thing I should touch on. So your small breed pigs, they're not going to be the best for producing big cuts of bacon. Bacon is one of the rarer cuts on the hog. You've only got so much belly, and a lot of the breeds that we're used to the big stripy bacon that we love, they come from those big, very lean, meaty breeds that I'm not saying you can't raise them. I raise one. I have one right now in the front yard, but for most folks, it's probably not the best place to start out. But there's lots of other things that are bacon-like, between hams, jowl meat, other things like that. If you want to jump into doing things like buckboard or Arkansas bacon, where it basically comes from the pork butt, there's no reason you can't do it. Just don't expect a huge yield of a bunch of stripy bacon, what we're used to, what the British call stripy bacon, what we call belly bacon, from a small breed pig. That said, when it comes to the wild hogs here in Texas, when it comes to some of the small breed pigs, I've taken some of the culls and actually cured the whole pig, smoked it and treated it like a whole ham. And Brian and Corey, actually, while they were down here, got a chance to have some of that. They still call them the baby pork chops. Those were actually fully cured the whole pig and then cut up after I smoked them. And man, they were delicious, absolutely delicious. So let's see here. Golden Cricket says she's got some Kuni belly in the freezer that you need to cure, but have been scared to. Yeah, no, check it out. Let me know. And if you do just want to get like a cure, like a brine cure, let me know. I haven't put it on the website yet as something to offer in mass, but I have access to some great mixes, and I've got some good recipes for cure. And I can give you some write-up instructions. And if I know how much you're trying to do, I have no problem making some cure up and shipping it out to you. That is one thing that I really need to do, get added to renegadebutcher.com as something, a bacon and ham cure. I actually had custom request it a while back, ships them out to them. So hopefully they'll be enjoying that. I've done a lot of bacon and a lot of hams, and I enjoy doing it. It's a process. You do have to do it right, though. Mistakes happen. Kyle went through that recently where he ended up losing some bellies because he didn't get things weighed down. And hard mistake, but that's how we learn. Let's see here. Kyle says he keeps looking at the monitor thinking the kids were awake, and it's just the geese. You're right. They're so damn loud. And it's time of night. It's about bedtime. So I'm going to have to jump out and get them all taken care of in a bit here. But, man, they're noisy. Let's see here. And, yeah, Brian says the baby pork chops. They are very, very good. Very, very good. Let's see here. Kyle loves sausage but not pork. I think he might like both depending on the context. But let's see here. Oh, yeah, Kyle says he's handled a lot of link sausage in his day. And we can take that however you want, folks. But it's true both ways, actually. It both runs in the family, and it's a skill that he's honed with lots of experience. Now, let's see here. And, yeah, he says pigs are a great choice. You're absolutely right that people need to research on what breed works best for them. Yes, because, like I said, don't just go and get like a blue butt wean hog or something like that. I think you're going to keep it in a small pen and do well with it. It's not only going to eat you out of house and home, it's going to be a lot to deal with. And, man, if they want to lift a fence, they're going to lift a fence. So understand what you're getting into. I think dipping your toe in the water with a small breed and making sure – with any livestock, you have your infrastructure set up and talk to people who have done it before first. You've got access to a whole community, folks. Check out the Telegram group. Links down in the show notes. There's lots of resources online. Reach out to me, ask questions. If I don't know, I'll point you in the right direction of somebody who does. But with any of these breeds, any of these species, talk to somebody, get their input, figure out how to do it right, and set your shit up first before you jump into it. But I think everybody should at least experience some sort of, animal husbandry. I think it's an important part of self-sustainability. It can really, really augment your gardening. And it's a great way to actually make sure you've got feed on site. And it's the other thing, if you got these animals alive, worst case scenario, we are in a bad situation. You don't have access to refrigeration, power's out or whatnot. You lose a whole freezer full of something. You've always got food if you've got animal on the, meat on the hoof. If you need to go and cull something, if you just got to get something to eat today, and you've got extra chickens around, guess what? You're gonna have food to eat. So it's very, very sustainable, but it is also a lot of work. Let's not lie to you. It's a commitment. It's a commitment, and one of the big downsides with any of these breeds, when any of these animals having any kind of livestock, is it's hard to get away from home. They need to eat every day. They need to be taken care of and protected and maybe moved in and out of a pen every single day. And unless you've got some help, you've got people trained, people you can rely on that are going to be able to handle that when you're not around. Kiss your ass goodbye when it comes to vacations or just that last minute travel, or I want to go away for the weekend. So it's a balance. You've got on one hand the ultimate sustainability and lack of reliance on a centralized food system, but you've also got a responsibility, and things will die. Things are going to die if you don't do the job right. Also, being upfront coming into this, especially if you've never done it, never been involved with this, things are going to die, and it's going to be your fault. You're going to make mistakes, and you're going to have to live with that. So listen to people who know what they're talking about, take their advice, learn from other people's mistakes, but don't feel like in any way you're ever going to get out of the fact that you're going to fuck up, something's going to die or suffer, and it's going to be your fault. It's going to be a hard lesson, but don't necessarily give up. Take that lesson in, learn it, do better, and it's a part of it, unfortunately. Let's see here. Golden Cricket says, you keep trying to buy potbellies, but they pull back when I mention eating them. You don't like to lie. No, you're right. You're right. around here, it's not hard to find somebody who just has a potbelly that's bred a ton and they just really want to get rid of them, especially if they'll usually offer fair prices too. I mean, I can probably pick up a young potbelly for 10, 20 bucks. And most people around here don't really care that much, but it's kind of shitty if you go and adopt somebody's house raised potbelly and they think you're keeping it as a pet and their life changed and they can't keep his animal now. I'm not saying to be a dick. I will also say if you ever end up with an animal like that, you're okay with it, they're okay with it. There's not really a moral issue with you eating that animal because the understanding is it's going to go to a nice little home and live out its life. Somebody's 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old potbelly that's big and fat and been living on, Krispy Kreme and whatever they dig out of the trash isn't going to taste great. If you buy it with the intention of I'm just going to put that in my freezer, it's probably going to taste like shit because it was not raised as a meat animal. What you feed these animals and how you manage that does make a big difference in the end flavor and their health. So keep it in mind, if you want to raise it as a meat animal, it's best to get them young when you can and raise them with the intention. So look around, do what you can. There's a lot more people who are interested in raising things like potbellies for meat, and you may have better luck when you're searching. Don't look for potbellies as much. Look up Asian heritage hogs or Vietnamese heritage hogs. And the folks who are actually raising those for a sustainable meat animal will usually operate under one of those monikers because it doesn't carry the stigma, the pet stigma. So let's see here. Kyle mentions that Osaba Island and Mangalitsa's. Mangalitsa is another great breed. They're going to be more of a northern breed. If you've ever seen them, they're the pigs that look like they're sheep. They've got wool. They've got that curly, nappy hair all over the outside of them. They're a fun breed. They're not a great hot weather breed, so that's one I've not used because of my climate, but I've heard really good things. And they're known to be. That's another thing with these heritage breeds. They are very flavorful pigs. If you've never experienced pork that's an actual true red meat, we're so used to pork being called the other white meat for so long. That was a marketing campaign because they were raising pigs to grow as quick as possible, to eat as cheaply as possible, I should say. I don't want to say as little as possible, but the cheapest things that we could throw down their throats to get them up to size. And you've got pale, watery pork now from the store. What we're used to, the other white meat, is really just a very young animal that was raised as quickly as possible and never generated flavor or depth of flavor to its meat. Some of these heritage breeds, even the little potbellies, are some of the best pork I've ever fucking eaten. And they're going to be a dark red meat. If you've ever ate wild pork, you probably understand what I'm talking about. It tastes like what you never expected pork to taste like. So these heritage breeds are fucking delicious. They just take a little bit longer to get up to size. Let's see here. Yes, Island Boys. Yes, okay. What did we have here? Lisa says, we butchered our potbelly at 125 pounds. And you were impressed by the bacon off the potbelly. It was tasty and looked really nice sliced. Yeah, if you get a potbelly, I'm not saying they don't make good bacon, but I've had some get up to 125, 150 pounds and raised right, where they're not just a blob of fat. They do produce decent sized bellies, but your younger ones, your cull ones, especially if you have too many males. That's how I managed mine personally. I didn't want to go in and castrate and raise them all out like that. I culled the males when they were young before they became a problem, raised my extra sows up and kept the best ones as breeding sows and ate the rest of them as my larger cuts. It was just the easiest way for me to handle it with my situation. And it's only those larger ones that you've raised out for generally a couple of years that you can get some decent bellies off of. And you can probably get 5, 6, maybe 10 pounds of bacon off of a larger potbelly sow. Or, I mean, obviously you could do it off of a barrow or something else like that too, if you wanted to. I did cull a potbelly boar that was a little bit older, and man, he ate great. He had some great bacon off of him. And but it just takes a lot longer to get to that size because they are a little bit smaller and slower growing. And you're still at 125, 150 pounds off a 2, 3-year-old pig. You're not going to get near the volume of bacon you would expect off of a pig that age from a larger breed. In fact, 8, 9 months, you're going to have double that amount of bacon off of an actual bacon breed of pig. So if that's your goal, actually producing as much bacon as possible quickly. Set yourself up with a good hog infrastructure. Understand you're going to be feeding that thing, and you're going to have a ton of pork off of it. But it's not the small scale sustainable way I would start if you've never gotten into it. I would say raise a couple of small breed pigs before you jump into the big breeds. I love raising one or two every year. I like the big breeds of pigs. I don't want to keep a breeding pair of them because they get so huge and they're so expensive to keep. But I do love me some bacon. I really do. Let's check this last comment here before we wrap it up. We're coming up on an hour and a half. This has been a lot of me rambling. It's packed a lot into this episode. Let's see here. This says small breed pigs do need to be limited of feed, or you'll have, a fat, blind 400-pound pig that can't see or walk. Yeah. And it's honestly sad when you do see it happen. They get so obese. It's honestly almost cruel. And you're not going to get much of a yield out of it unless you're just wanting a bunch of fat. And it'll be hard on them, hard on their feet, their joints. I've seen potbellies get so fat they can't walk. And you really do have to manage that feed. It's a pro and a con. These pigs can almost live off your kitchen scraps and a little bit of feed daily and be doing very, very fucking well. But if you just give them all they can eat, man, it's terrible. I mean, it's my 600-pound life. It's awful. Let's see here. And yes, Backwood says it is a shit ton of work. It can be, especially your big breed pigs. My experience, if you set it up right, a small breed hog, and you manage it well, and you understand that you're going to have issues with these things breed young, and you're going to have to be responsible and cull those males, and you're going to have some pens and some infrastructure set up to deal with them. But overall, what effort I did put into it, aside from setting up that infrastructure, small breed pigs were more productive for me than anything I've done in poultry. So to me, they're kind of the ultimate sustainable meat hack when it comes to your homesteading type thing. But it's not for everybody, and pigs still don't lay eggs. So they're not very dual purpose in that way. They do have utilitarian purposes, though, too. Pigs, I should have mentioned that. They're great at being able to clear areas. If you've got an area and you want to not have to till it, because I hate having to till, there's a lot of reasons not to till. But if you want to clear out a garden bed, pen some pigs up in there. Throw some grain around, let them, they will turn that soil. They will eat up every root. They will go through and eat all the grubs and the bugs, and they will turn that soil and it'll be ready to plant. If you pen them up around an old tree stump, something you're trying to get rid of, throw some corn out there and just keep tossing it, and they'll dig that stump up out of the ground, rip it up, and probably eat half of the damn thing because they just love to dig and tear things up. It's their natural thing. They're nature's bulldozers. So they're very, very good at that. If you have a patch of blackberries or something that just briars that you have to fight and deal with, and no matter how much you cut them back, they just keep coming back. Nothing's going to do a better job of tearing something out by the roots and decimating it, if that's your goal, than penning pigs in an area. They can be used to help seal old-style ponds. They go in and they dig, they tear things up, and they will disturb the soil. And it's sort of like if you put soil in a jar with water and shake it up, and it all settles, and you see the different layers of the different components of the soil. That disruption, they'll actually cause that clay to be dispersed, and it mixes between the feces and everything, forms what they call a gleat, like an algae slime. Basically, if you pen them up long enough in an area, they will make it hold water. It's a natural thing for them. If you leave pigs in a place too long and they don't have a wallow, they'll build one. They'll make a pond. If that place will never hold water, it's constantly perking, a pig will make a pond. So if you pen pigs up in an area, leave them long enough, you're going to have to feed them. They're not going to have other resources. They're going to be muddy. It's going to be a shitty mess. It's going to smell. But if you need a pond sealed and you don't have access to heavy equipment, you're out in the back 40, man, you can raise some pigs and build a pond at the same damn time. So there's a lot of ways to utilize them. They're a great utilitarian animal. And they also do very well, especially on a rotated pasture model, with poultry. If you're running pigs and you're running chickens behind them, or you're running something like sheep or cattle, and then pigs behind, and then chickens behind, and you space it out right, you dig into permaculture, there's some really great use cases. So I also think they're a fairly easy way to get into it. They're a little bit more advanced than raising, say, a chicken or a quail, but it's worth looking into. So with that said, hey guys, I'm going to go do one final round. If you guys have any questions or thoughts or ideas you want to throw out before I wrap it up, I've gone an hour and a half. So this has been one of the longer episodes where I haven't had a ton of audience interaction or guests. So very packed episode. Being it's the first episode after the big episode 50, I wanted to really throw something out that had some serious meat to it. Pun intended this time. And let's see. Let's catch up these comments. We'll give it another good 5-10 minutes here for people to throw any last questions. Let's see here. Brian says, neither do dogs. Yeah, as far as laying eggs, yes, you're right. I'm not sure what part I may have misspoken or you may have misheard, but I don't think I ever said dogs laid eggs. Correct me if I'm wrong. And if you did find it, please clip it on fountain.fm. Let's see. Your Golden Cricket says, yeah, you got a Kune for free because she was so fat. She lived alone in a walnut orchard. Poor thing couldn't see. Yeah, a little bit sad, but they do love those walnuts, man. Any of those trees, those mass crops, it's a great way to fatten some pigs up. That's another reason that I love pigs. They're one of the few things that, other than chickens, that do very, very well in wooded areas. If you actually have like a stand of woods that's got a lot of oaks, dude, if you can fence that off and make it pig tight, which is a challenge. Kyle's got some great videos on that. But you keep those pigs in there, when that acorn crop comes, man, they're going to put on fat like crazy. And it's high protein. So it's a great way to finish it off. In fact, we discussed this a little bit earlier today on Nostr, talking on Nostr nests. And some of the most expensive cured meat in the world, we've touched on this, is Iberico pork, Jamon Iberico, and it's a Spanish breed of pig that are fattened on acorns. And it's some of the most desirable meat you can get. So acorn, walnut finished pork, absolutely excellent. Let's see here. Lisa says, yeah, Mangalides are generally a lard breed. Had a Baron Sow from a friend that ended up with 40 pounds of beautiful lard. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of these old-fashioned breeds are what we call a lard breed. They kind of turn pigs or split them into bacon and lard breeds. Bacon breeds tend to be fast-growing, more lean breeds, even though they will produce plenty of fat. Lard breeds tend to just be very, very efficient at growing slow but producing a lot of fat. And while that may be a downside if you don't want a ton of lard or if you're looking for a lot of meaty cuts, as I said, if you're trying to be self-sustainable, one of the hardest things to source that we absolutely need in the human diet is good quality fat. And unless you've got access to something, unless you live close to a jungle, unless you can grow avocados, unless you have a press and you want to press seed oils, which are generally not the best thing for you, natural animal fats, especially off of pasture-raised animals, are the best thing you can put in your body. And pigs are the best fat producers on the fucking planet. And pork lard has so many other uses outside of just eating. It's excellent for skincare products. It's excellent for making salves. It's excellent for, a fuel. Hell, for you can make freaking candles out of it if you want to. There's so many uses for lard. And back when being completely decentralized and having no centralized food system to lean on, you had no way to get your olive oil. You had no way to get in to import, sunflower oil, and you didn't have the resources to do it yourself. Pigs are like the easy button for producing fat for so many freaking things. So they're very useful if you're trying to get off grid or disconnect from relying on other people for eating. Oh, that's what he said. I said Muscovies aren't the top dog of layers. No, you're right. You're right. They are not. In that colloquial term of what a top dog means, not saying a duck is a dog, even though Muscovy ducks do act like little puppy dogs sometimes. It's interesting. They're very fun. They like to chat to each other and wag their little tails, and it's like a little dog. They wag their tails when they're happy. It's so fucking cute. And the males actually sound like a little dog panting. So I'll tell you what, they grow on you really, really quick. And let's see here. Oh, yeah. Oh, got him. Yep, that was such a great pun. That was a Josh joke, guys. That was a Josh joke. I'm proud of you. You've learned so much by following this podcast. Oh, guys. Once again, thank you guys so much for being a part of this community and for hanging out. Love the audience interaction. You guys were busy down here in the chat. We've got 7 live people watching. We were up to 8 or so. Been one of the busier episodes. I'm going to put this out there. Going to download this, get the audio side up. And hopefully everything sounds great on the audio side as well. I hope you guys learned something and it was educational. And if you are experiencing livestock, maybe you picked up a few tips. If not, if you are just getting involved with this or just interested in it, I hope it gave you some thoughts, some ideas, maybe some things to look at in the future. And hopefully some of the warnings and ideas in my experience I put out give you some basis to work with. Like I said, I would encourage anybody who's new to it, who is looking at going down the road of this lifestyle or wants to jump into animal husbandry, please get on the Telegram group. Please get in touch with a community, your local community, your local farmers or ranchers. Find somebody who's got some experience with this, pick their brain. And there's so many people out there willing to share their experience and their time, whether it's breed specific or just getting into it in general, and find out what they do. If you're anywhere around Southeast Texas, let me know. I'm happy to do some consulting with you and walk through, tell you some things that you could do with your property, give you some ideas on actually your situation and raising things yourself. Even if not, I'm happy to do some phone consultations. I always offer at least a 30-minute free consultation to anybody who wants to just learn about this and see if consulting with me is something that's going to be right for you. And I know other folks do the same. Brian from the Lots Project, he's done quite a bit when it comes to animal husbandry on their place, and they're traveling around the country. So maybe it would work out that he can come and give you some evaluation. Lots of people in this community. Kyle's up in New Hampshire. If you're in the New England area, guess what? He's actually actively raising and processing and selling meat. So maybe something to check out. So we have a huge community, and I'd love to connect people who are close to each other with each other. But we have this wonderful tool called the internet, and it allows us to actually collaborate, communicate, share, and learn. That's why we're all here. Thank you guys for tuning into episode 51 of the Renegade Butcher Show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll catch you guys on Telegram, on Nostr, on all the places. And if you have any questions, you know where to find me. About to get this audio side uploaded. You guys have a wonderful night. And thanks again for tuning in.